Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So the Trump martial law thing is coming. I'm releasing that one video this morning, and then today's Tuesday, August 12th, and then there's some backlash, and I want to finish the press conference because it gets worse as it goes. So we'll get to that in just a second, just a brief introduction. I'm aware that people, even if I try to communicate to the best of my ability, will not hear things the way that I intend. It's been something that I've observed my whole life in conversations with other people, and now, of course, doing this, what I do here, that people will hear things based in the way they want to hear them. It's pretty much across the board. So communication, like there's just so much talking. I don't think talking was supposed to be the way it is. Like it's just there should be more intuition, more ESP type stuff, and more just knowing, right? Like oftentimes you meet somebody and you get a sense of them. And this has happened to me a number of times when I was younger. My first kind of like, I don't know, real girlfriend. And I immediately was, I don't want to be anywhere near this person, right? I was in my 20s and I was waiting tables and they have these like small trays you carry drinks on, and never had enough at this restaurant. And this my first day at work. She came up to me and said, "If you take my small tray, I'll cut off your nuts," which is a pretty big red flag um, introduction. And she wasn't like one of these aggressive, barmaids, like some, thuggish woman. She was just whatever. But I looked at her and I was like, I don't want to, have anything to do with this person. And like 8 months, 6 months later, we were dating. And, everything that I needed to know was in that first interaction because she was, a horrible person. And, oftentimes this kind of thing happens where somebody, this happened with Joe Biden when she first met Joe Biden, whatever it was, or the first date or whatever. She said that she was repulsed by the guy. And so, I mean, I don't know why that's significant. It's because, she was ended up being his handler or whatever. But oftentimes you meet people and you have a negative reaction to them. But somehow, through their words, usually, they convince you otherwise. And, people know things and have intuit things. And, but now you need facts and you have to be able to prove stuff. And, people will create doubt in your perception. And so, because there's just too many words, people just talk too much. And that's, it clouds people's judgment. And not just, it's the amount of words that are out there. And people don't have moments of silence. They don't have moments where they're just sitting, not talking. I mean, things are just people fill the air with conversation. My wife and I love this show, Love on the Spectrum, about autistic people. It's an amazing show and well edited. And there's this one guy. He's very upbeat and talkative, just like a lot of ball of energy. But he went to these. They go to this. They bring in this woman who helps teach autistic people how to have dates and things. And so he was told to, you don't have to talk all the time. So he puts in these purposeful moments of silence, which he acknowledges. But this thing where there was a comedian, Chris Porter, that's talking about how people who just talk all the time, and they just can't sit there and just be in peace. And he goes, they can't be just alone with their thoughts because they don't have any. But oftentimes people need to be distracted. They don't want to close their eyes, and people can't meditate. People are afraid to look within. They're afraid to internalize anything in their existence, and everyone's extremely extroverted, even if they start off introverted, in the sense that you can be introverted, do introverted behaviors, but like video games, which is or whatever you're doing on your screens, but you're being stimulated from externally, so you're not going in and just whatever. So like, there's just too many words, and it's hard for me to read all the comments. I scan through them, so sometimes I don't read them correctly. It's just the way it is, and sometimes I'm not sure what people are saying. Obviously, it's comments are you know, it's a lot harder to understand sarcasm or any number of things through the comment section. And that's the way people communicate with devices in between them. And so they can't get the emotional connection. They can't get the whatever you need to intuit things and to kind of understand people on a deeper level. And you have to go past people's bullshit, right? Because people are liars. They're lying to themselves. So people who are lying to themselves believe their own lies, and it's a lot harder to tell because they believe what they're saying. Oftentimes people believe what they're saying, but they're just full of shit, right? So, it's not like they're lying because and the world that they've created, the delusion they've created is just, it's just wrong, but they are very convincing. So there's all those things. But in that, like, I had a number of comments yesterday, and I want to address those things here. I don't know, if it makes any difference, but to clarify it. So, my health stuff with my tooth, somebody wrote me and said that I said I was going to put something on, on Spotify. And only if I'm trying something, if it works. It's not totally working now. It's working a little bit. But I have an infection. Another person wrote that said, hey, don't get a root canal. And I kind of made it clear I'm not getting one. So there's that. But, it's just nothing's happening for a while. I was supposed to see a specialist towards the end of the month. And then, they'll take x-rays and maybe I can reverse things a little bit by then using what I'm using. It's hard to penetrate into the root area, the nerve area of a tooth because it's, a lot of it's in bone. You're trying to penetrate through bone to get the infection out. That's why they do root canals and things like that. The only options right now available to me are to get the tooth out and a root canal. And the stuff that I'm trying is try to get the anti-infection stuff into penetrate into the area. And it may or may not work. If it works, great. And if it does, I'll make a video on Spotify about it. But other than that, we'll see. The other thing, people, I've been talking about the Pockets of Future community. And community is not the right word. It's a neighborhood. People who, if things collapse, you need neighbors. You need a village, right? You just can't grow all the food and do all the things on your own. But I'm not building a community. There's no financial connection. I don't want any of those things. I'm not looking to support people. I'm not looking to, have a communal situation. A neighborhood where you have neighbors. Like that's the most that I could do. Not like there's shared land and there's people on it that are all living in some kind of communal situation. Like that's just not what I'm not going to put myself in that position. That's just a nightmare. I'm not accepting money or doing things like that. There's one kind of situation will be a little bit different. But that's, I'll talk about that in the future. But I've been so low energy, I haven't been able to deal with it, right? So, I was talking about people who are looking to be in a more agrarian situation. And there's we have some farmland that people could, grow enough food for a lot of people. And people would have to pitch in and do work. And, people who are interested in farming, like are interested in these kind of things. And have some, background and skills. But also have the ability to support themselves. Like people who are working online who could move. People who have jobs working online or can easily get a job in a different area. But I don't want people thinking, Paul told me to move here and somehow I'm responsible for whatever, right? So that's what I've been trying to avoid. That's why I want to kind of screen people. I don't want to get into a situation where I have to carry people or there's drama because I'm just tapped out on that shit. I just, my past marriage and my kids and all the stuff I've gone through and the stuff I've seen that happened and with Heartfulness and the rest of it, I can't, I don't want to ruin my wife's and my retirement years, right? Like it's, it'd be great if you have, if you're doing an agrarian type situation and the economy collapses, and we're in a different period of time where people have to start growing food and helping each other, then it's a good thing to have good neighbors. Like everything's going to revolve around your neighbors and what kind of neighbors you have, because it has to become localized. Because if the grocery stores no longer have enough food and these things, you need, and whatever it might be, not just that, but everything. Then you need people, like the old villages, the old tribes. But it's not that it would just be a neighborhood, like a Pockets of Future neighborhood. And if people are interested in this, and they have the ability to move financially and every other way, and are looking to be in a situation like that. But I'm not a social person either, so I mean, it would have to be whatever it is. Like I don't know how it would play out, but if people have that interest, they can email me. I'm not doing anything with it right now because I just barely get through the day because I'm just tired and I'm not even sure it's anything physical. It might be like spiritual changes. There's supposed to be this genetic modification that's happening according to the Whispers of the Brighter World messages, where people are going to change biologically. And, people often get really tired before big events unfold, because sleep is so important to adjusting yourself and absorbing new things that are happening, like things that might shock your system. So anyways, there's that. The last thing was, I watched these movies 2001, 2010, and I don't know if I talked about this, but I'll say it again here if I haven't. The evolutionary theory, things do change, adapt, and evolved. There's creatures that came from other creatures. They were creatures that were one way, and then they adapted to something else. You look at all the various chickens. We have new chickens, new chicks. And there's so many variety of chicks and dogs. Dogs, there was wild dogs, wild type dogs, foxes and wolves and these other type of canine creatures. And they're very, the species are, there's different species, like 3 or 4 different species of fox, maybe more than that, and variations in different locations where they adapt to the environment. But not the amount of dogs that we have, like all these various dogs that come from, these canine creatures. And so there's so much genetic possibility, genetic variation of even like plant growth, and people have cultivated things. And so there is evolution. You can change things by selective breeding and different things, right? Environmental issues. And you can domesticate animals, and they change when you do that. So there's things like that, right? But in terms of like the overall evolution of all the species, why is it only the apes produced creatures that, why did the apes win out? Like in terms of, there are various types of like elephants, and there's, cows, and there's intelligent animals, right? And dogs and things like that. Why were the apes the only one that produced advanced creature? Why did it take such an evolutionary jump? So if you look at the highest developed creature, dolphins and whales and things like this, intelligent creatures with different abilities, the sonar and the things that the dolphins and the whales do. Why did people have such a higher level consciousness, such a higher level ability to manipulate the world around them, right? Because of our hands. Our hands are a big part of it, and build things. And so, I believe that there's been genetic tampering. You had these apes that were there, were related to these various primates. There's 4 apes without tails that aren't monkeys. They're, chimpanzees, orangutans, gibbons, and gibbons and gorillas, and different types of, like the Semang ape is a type of a gibbon, right? But they're monkeys without tails, and we have 98% in common genetically with the chimpanzee. But why? Why is it the apes made such a huge leap from ape to human being, but these other animals didn't? These other animals, like all these other species that have shown signs of intelligence and various types of consciousness, various types of higher level consciousness. To me, it's had to be some kind of genetic manipulation, right? Of course, there's some evidence. I've talked about that with the fused chromosome, the second and third chromosome have been fused together in a human being. So if you're going to make a slave, if you're going to make a worker, which would be the best one to make if you're going to take some of your DNA as some humanoid alien creature and fuse it with put it into a creature that lived on Earth that was adaptable to planet Earth. Let's say that you, like the atmosphere for planet Earth isn't really suited for your particular, species, right? Because you come from a different planet. You would take an ape because they have the ability to do things with their hands, right? Like an elephant's trunk isn't going to be able to, the dog's paws aren't going to be able to build things and move things and do things the way that you would need them to do that, right? Like our hands are so important. And so, anyways, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. But let's get into the Trump stuff here straight away. Breaking: Epstein Island sold to wealthy Middle East businessman Hadid Nikhil Mosaf. It's Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know if somebody told me that's really made me chuckle. These memes are, to me, the saving grace of the internet. There's some good stuff on there, and I've learned a lot of things, and YouTube's been great for me, and, there's been a lot, the internet's been, mostly positive in my life. I understand, and the technological aspects of, all these things, and the Wi-Fi and its effect on the subtle bodies, and, my spiritual beliefs, and just, all this stuff. People spend too much time on screens and all the icky things on the internet. But memes have really just been great. It's a wonderful thing. And this is a really funny thing. And so, these things come out, like everyone's focusing on Epstein, and there's going to be, I'm not going to see all of them, but there's going to be 20 to 50 really great Epstein memes. We already saw one I've already showed you a couple of them. Okay, so I want to go right to the press conference, the rest of it, because I missed the back end. I just got too tired and the video was getting too long. But here it is. Chicago's crime decline is part of a national trend, researchers say. LA on pace to have the lowest homicide total in 60 years as killings plummet. New York City sees a historic drop in crime, police commissioner says. Baltimore reports historic drop in homicide rates, with April hitting all-time low. Crime trending down in Oakland, new numbers show. So, I don't know about crime in all these cities. And I know there's always been crime in D.C. But they had a few events where Trump staffers were, involved in crimes. But that doesn't mean that it was worse under Biden or, any of these things. And Trump doesn't, we know what Trump thinks about numbers, which after I'm done with this, I'll put that meme in there. Hopefully I'll remember. But Trump came out with numbers, and he was saying it's the worst place, and we're worse. D.C. is worse than all these countries, and, all these things. But Trump is the least believable, and we'll get into this in a second. But, this is never about what Trump says it's about. Like, he's the worst liar. Like, he's so transparent as a liar.
We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting.
U.S. crime down in every category in 2024, FBI report says. Fishboy.
Very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say.
So the question is, does the situation actually warrant such a dramatic and provocative response? Or, as Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, says, is D.C. just the first step of militarizing cities like dictators do? CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson joins us in our fifth seat. It's an obvious point why Trump would start with D.C., because D.C. is the one place in this country where there's a little bit more leeway to do this. But I think the question people are asking themselves is
okay, so
this a trial run for more?
Yeah, of course it is. And this is what I was saying. Trump is the worst fucking person for, he's the worst nightmare for truthers, because he's convinced truthers. We'll get into it. Let's show the Rachel Maddow thing here. So Rachel Maddow Dude, Rachel Maddow is one of the people that's the most difficult for me to listen to. Just really annoying, and just her mannerisms, all the things. YouTube recommended. These are the first two videos I saw this morning that YouTube recommended to me as I woke up and opened up my phone and put on YouTube. And well, let's just start this thing.
In Washington, D.C., homicides are down 32%, robberies are down 39%, armed carjackings are down 53%, assaults with a dangerous weapon are down 27%. In Washington, D.C., the rates of burglaries and assaults with a dangerous weapon are at their lowest point in 30 years. Nevertheless, because he's so tough on crime, President Trump today deployed hundreds of National Guardsmen and women into Washington, D.C. Send the U.S. military to become the police force in Washington, D.C. The lead in the Washington Post tonight, quote, President Donald Trump announced today that he is placing the D.C. police under direct federal control and will deploy the National Guard to the streets of Washington, an extraordinary flex of federal power that strips city leadership of its ability to make law enforcement decisions and could expose residents of the nation's capital to unpredictable encounters with a domestically deployed military force.
So here's the thing. Barack Hussein Obama had so convinced the liberals that he was anti-war. He wasn't in the Senate when they had to vote for the Iraq War. So he could claim he wouldn't have voted for the Iraq War. Remember, that's the time period where he was being elected. So the Iraq War ends up being completely bullshit. Especially, the Colin Powell Colin Powell being set up by the Dick Cheney neocons to go to the UN and make false claims, right, about Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. I wasn't a truther back then, and I didn't know about 9/11 till a couple years later. But I was, and then when YouTube kind of took off, and then there was all that, but I was a little bit of a truther, and I was more of a liberal than I certainly wasn't conservative. But I was amongst those people that said, if bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia and had no relationship with Saddam Hussein, there was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, why the fuck are we invading Iraq when it had nothing to do with 9/11? Zero. Like, they weren't even claiming it had anything to do with it. They came out and said it didn't have anything to do with 9/11. So why are we invading Iraq? Made no sense at all, right? And then, of course, it was not about any of the things that they claimed. And so, Obama came in, and it seemed like he'd be an anti-war guy because he didn't vote for that war, and everyone else did that was running for whatever, Hillary Clinton and the rest of them, all the Republicans. And he had the name, and he had this thing, and he was a person of color. He talked with a Muslim accent. It seemed like he would back off these wars. But he just doubled and tripled down. He went into Libya, all this stuff. He tried to go into Syria. He went after whistleblowers. He committed war crimes. He was droning children. And the liberals never figured it out, right? And Republicans were like, great, we want that shit anyway. So it was like he was scoring baskets on his own goal. And his team was like, what are you doing, right? Because he kept on doing shit that was out of like the neocon right-wing playbook. But everyone thought he was a liberal, and he was a pacifist, like he was a peace guy. He won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. And so I noticed this, and I said, it's really dangerous when somebody convinces his people to trust them. The same way that Trump's done with the truth community and everybody else, right? And so Rachel Maddow is a piece of shit, sucks, one of the worst people out here. But she's more believable and has more credibility than Trump. Because Trump doesn't, look into the numbers. Trump is disinterested in policies, disinterested in statistics. And so if, whatever stuff that Trump believes or doesn't believe, a few of his staffers get assaulted. But this is more about martial law and getting military into the city streets because they're preparing for something, right? And Trump is completely owned by Israel, which is another factor. Like he's, like this stuff with Epstein Trump, whatever reason he's owned by Israel, he's also somebody who's got exposure with Epstein, who, by everybody who knows anything about this, works for Mossad. And so Trump is the truther's worst fucking nightmare because they are all believing in him. I mean, every truther, like the legitimate truthers, I'm not talking about the right-wing dopey QBs and all the right-wing truthers, even the Joe Rogans and the Tucker Carlsons. I mean, they all are held accountable because they're people who say the official story is bullshit. But all these people that flirted with the truth community and are actual truthers that went along with this, you got fucking played so fucking bad. Like, I don't know how you come out and, like, reverse that. If you endorse Trump, when he showed you exactly what he was. Now, nobody knew what Trump was going to do, but everyone should have known that this was fucking possible. And he had talked about martial law in his first term and then the rest of these things. And which is, the first stage to dystopia is martial law. This is the first stage of them taking away your shit, right? Whether it be your guns or your rights or any of these things. And every truther that, believes in the truther stuff, and I'm like, I've said this over and over again, I want what God wants. And I know God doesn't want to save this system. So, I've had to adjust myself like everyone else. Big lifestyle changes are possibly coming. And it's going to suck because that kind of change is hard to absorb. Even for the most devoted people that see it's part of God's plan, it's still hard. But Trump's bringing it in, and Trump's the catalyst. And, it's obvious. And, you can say he's doing God's work, but not purposefully because he's a piece of shit. He doesn't believe in God. He's a fucking demon that just happens to be playing a role in the divine plan, right?
A domestically deployed military force.
Say it again, Rachel.
Because tough on crime. You think it's really about crime?
Dramatic pause.
You think it's really about being tough on crime?
Second dramatic pause.
Do you want to maybe track down the axe and machete triple murderer Trump just released to the streets of Orlando to go ask him if he thinks it's about being tough on crime? Or you maybe want to pop in to ask Ghislaine?
It's pronounced Ghislaine, and you know it.
At that Bureau of Prisons crown jewel facility that kind of looks like a community college? You want to go ask her? Think it's because he's so tough on crime? That said, let's be generous here. Maybe it's not really just a generic tough on crime thing. Maybe it's specifically because it's D.C., which is the seat of the U.S. federal government. So
okay. You can't say, but she's righter than Trump, right? Because she gets to do this because Trump is doing bad shit and lying about it and pretending things are, a certain way when they're not. And let's get into it. Let's get back to the thing here. So Trump told you who he is. This is one clip here. I want to show you this. Trump told you who he was. And any truther should have been neutral. There's enough data out there to show that it didn't make a difference who they put in. We were fucked. And just to be honest with yourself and say, if it's entertainment value or somehow Trump's policies might benefit you personally, okay, sure. But to pretend that he was going to be this fucking guy who was going to clean up the fucking bullshit and change things and make America great again, and that was never going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. If you're any kind of a truther, that's, even if he wanted to do that, no one can do that. You can't fix this fucking system. You're just lying to yourself. If you're lying to yourself, then you're not really a truther because you're not capable of seeing the truth, right? And, all these people that endorsed Trump and then went along with that bullshit fake WWE style fake shooting thing that happened, assassination attempt. And, when they know better, cover these things and seen them. And now you have to come clean. I'm having Bluetooth issues with my mic. Now you have to come clean, and just say, boy, did I get duped. And, question your ability as a fucking truther, right? Because this is an easy one. Like, fucking this clown is an easy one. Because he did this right here.
See so much secondary sanctions. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, you were the driving force behind Operation Warp Speed, these mRNA vaccines that are the gold standard.
Right.
Now your health secretary is pulling back all the funding for research. He's saying that the risks outweigh the benefits, which puts him at odds with
Research
the
on
entire
what?
medical community and with you. What is going
Yeah.
on
Research on what?
into mRNA vaccines?
Well, we're going to look at that. We're talking about it, and they're doing a very good job. And, you know, that is a past. Operation Warp Speed was, whether you're Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. The efficiency, the way it was done, the distribution, everything about it has been amazing. But, you know, that was now.
So he's saying, you know, this Operation Warp Speed is about getting the vaccines out. And if Trump didn't do Operation Warp Speed, the vaccines would have never became mandatory. Bill Gates said it was too fast. He said 2002. And by 2002, the COVID thing, which Bill Gates also said, had mutated itself out of existence. And really, the vaccines didn't have a chance to work because COVID had become so less serious because of its new mutation. And so this was all on Trump. All the stuff that happened from the vaccines, all of it. All the drama, all the fucking, issues, all the heart issues now, all the things that have happened. He got big pharma'd. And for him to come out and claim that shit, right? That it was, everyone thinks it's a great thing. How great? No, it wasn't. People don't think that way. And many of them are your own people. You're still fucking touting this as a success, you fucking piece of shit, right? And so he told you everything right here. When he did Operation Warp Speed, and then he got worked on the election, and he closed down the economy, like COVID fucked him, right? It exposed Trump. And then they, did Joe Biden him, and he was out, and he flipped out, and he did January 6th, and all the shit that he did. He just fucking punked himself. He got worked, and he showed who he was. And it wasn't great. Like, up until that point, I found his presidency very entertaining. In a position that doesn't really mean much, it was very entertaining. But Trump displayed the kind of person he was, and it wasn't a fucking truther when he did Operation Warp Speed and he closed the economy and all the other bad decisions he made. And he's still touting these things, right? And so, as truthers, he showed you. If a person who wants to know the truth about somebody, Trump just told you everything you need to know about him, and that he's a piece of shit, shill for big establishment, big pharma. He doesn't give a fuck about you, and he doesn't take responsibility for his mistakes. And they make these massive mistakes like Operation Warp Speed.
Long time ago, and we're on to other things. But we are speaking about it. We have meetings about it in tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and we'll determine. We're looking for other answers to other problems, to other sicknesses and diseases.
So, it's come out now that, people are, they're not, because Big Pharma owns the media, they're not just going to tell the truth about what happened here. Well, we know what happened. Like, anybody who's a truther knows what happened. And Trump has called himself the father of, the COVID vaccines. The father. Like, he's, so many things. I have a whole compilation I'm not going to show you here. You've seen it probably. But that's when Trump showed you what he was. And it was bad. And, like, whatever you want to say with him, you like him, he's entertaining, whatever it is. He ain't fucking, he ain't a savior. And so he's the opposite. He's a lying piece of shit, grifting piece of shit, right? And so it's there. It's there for everyone to see. And, the fact that people bought back into it. Remember how bad the QBs were lost? The QAnon morons were lost after Trump got outed and, like, fucking Biden got in. And all the shit he did, and he threw them under the bus at Operation January 6th. He brought them all up there, and he set them up. This was a setup that he walked right into. And then after the setup, he turned on them, and he blamed them for their bullshit instead of taking any responsibility for it. And they were lost, the QBs, and they regrouped because they had no choice. And they rallied behind this moron again, this fucking lying piece of shit. But we've known him. This is who he is. And he always had the potential to be worse than anybody else because he doesn't play by political rules. And he's the guy, right? He's the phenom for the controllers. He's the guy that was just perfectly suited to bring in martial law and do this other bullshit, right? Which is happening right in front of your fucking face right now. Okay, so let's begin where we left off here.
President, thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you very much.
Good job,
Thank
bro.
you, Cash.
Cash.
So the process begins right now. It actually started over the weekend, and we confronted a lot
Is cash short for cashew? What's
of very bad people. But it's going to be something that will be pretty amazing to you as you watch it. And I think most of
well, it's going to be amazing to us as we watch martial law fucking unfold. Yeah, it'll be amazing, I guess, in a bad way.
you say it's a beautiful thing to do it right. We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty,
Very dirty parks. A lot of dirty parks out there. People can't walk in those parks. It's dirty because homeless people are just crapping in the parks right there in front of vacationers. You can't go to the Grand Canyon anymore. These places, there's a big fire there, by the way. But these great national parks, you just can't go anymore. It's too much crime.
we got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of
Homeless people.
some of those people, we don't know how they even got there. Some of those people are from different countries, different parts of the world. Nobody knows who they are. They have no idea, but they're there.
They don't know who these homeless people are. They could be fucking terrorists. They could be Russian agents or Chinese agents. I mean, who knows what they're doing, right? And they could work for Mossad, and they could start a human trafficking network and lure a bunch of rich people into, have one guy, like a billionaire guy. Maybe you could have an island or something.
We're getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can.
What do you mean
help.
there's many places they can go? Where can the homeless go? But pretty much anywhere they want, right? Like, that's a good thing about being homeless. You can go in, you can sleep anywhere you want. Like, you don't have anywhere to go home. Like, fucking, they say, well, it's time for me to turn in. I'm going home. Where's that? I don't know. Right here, right? That's the advantage of being an entrepreneur.
But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see. The Metropolitan Police Department and the federal authorities will
It seems mostly about homeless, right?
be supported in the effort, a really big effort, the 800 DC National Guardsmen that we'll put on, and much more if necessary, much more. You remember I said, I offered 10,000 once. Remember I said to a certain person who I thought always was highly overrated, not very competent.
Nancy Pelosi's talking about January 6th. He offered 10,000 people to Nancy Pelosi or whoever on January 6th, remember?
But I said, if you need them, we'll give you 10,000 of the military or the National Guard. They turned me down.
Maybe that was the chief of police. So it had to do with January 6th, whatever it was, right?
But if necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the Guardsmen. And that'll take place very rapidly, and that'll be done in conjunction with Pam and with Pete and everybody else. Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, and most beautiful cities anywhere in the world. And we're going to make it that. We're going to make it safe. We're going to make it smart. We're going to make it beautiful. So beautiful.
See, if it isn't crime, then it's the homeless. Like, if this isn't just about distracting from Epstein or martial law, which, all those things are, there's multiple, it's a multiple, thing. It's multiple. It's like an octopus. But he's not really talking about crime so much. There was a few big instances of crime that affected him and his people. That Doge guy and those other people. But really, the crime statistics are not, given what everyone else is saying. And these were statistics that were out there before Trump decided to do this. They weren't just things that people made up when Trump all of a sudden, hey, I wanted to create martial law in D.C., right? And so the main thing is the homeless. He's probably looking at all the fucking homeless people there. And, people are talking about it. And he's like, well, let's get rid of them. Well, we can't just get rid of homeless. We have to make it about something else, right? Which is the crime. And so, I mean, that's, and you could do something humane. Like if you want to make this about the homeless, find a way to, create some kind of place where you can bring them. Some tenement, I mean, just whatever it is, and, move them somewhere. But, like he's just going to grab them and dump them in Baltimore.
Some of the buildings, we're going to add to it. You see what we've done at the White House. White House is a whole different building. I do that in my part-time because it's a natural instinct as a real estate person.
Just spend American taxpayer money and donor money on making my shit better. My plane, my house, these things.
I was very good at that, and I was very good at fixing things up. I like fixing things up. You see what's happening. The marble floors are being reinstalled, renovated, fixed. The whole place is becoming very beautiful. We're going to be adding a magnificent ballroom, most beautiful ballroom, I think, anywhere.
And the most beautiful ballroom in the whole. See, he talks with such like confidence in his words, like his bullshit is really polished. When he says, "Oh, we got the best people, we're going to do this, and this is what we did here," and if you don't fact check it, or you don't realize he's a grifter, and you don't realize he's full of shit, even though he's being narcissistic, he's really good at selling his bullshit, right? He just talks with such, confidence. This is the way it is. Yeah, this, You don't look into it. You don't understand the kind of person he is, and you're kind of, you're double-digit IQ, or you're desperate. You're desperate for somebody to tell you what you want to hear. Then it's easy to believe him, right?
Need it. I would have certainly loved to have had it today. I think we would have filled it up. A lot of you are standing outside, can't get in this room. I have never seen the room like this, which tells me that you want to talk about, this was a D.C. news conference. It tells me that you want to talk about crime in D.C. and beautification of D.C., but I'm going to put that's easy. And I think
that's what he's trying to do in Gaza. They take in prime real estate, because D.C. is a lot of oceanfront, the Potomac River, the capital. It's a lot of fucking valuable real estate. And that whole area, and there's a lot of poor people living in areas that, they're not, the jobs that need to be done there, they can be done by people who are, living outside of D.C., right? They can make all of D.C. like Manhattan, or some, big metropolitan city with a shit ton of money, right? It's got all this governmental money, federal money, lobbyist money, right? All that shit. And so, this is the kind of thing that he'd like to do. He likes to develop land. He likes to gentrification, right?
frankly, fixing the crime with the pros, fixing the crime is easy too. A person who I've known for a long time, and she's been incredible. She was a fantastic, one of the best ever district attorneys in New York. She was in Westchester, and she became a judge, very successful judge. And then she went into show business because she was such a good DA and such a good judge, tough judge, but fair, always fair. Nobody ever complained about that, but she was tough.
I'm sure plenty of people complain. You can't be tough but fair. He's bringing her in to be like, fuck you guys, everyone's guilty. I mean, this is getting rid of your judicial rights, bringing in people who are just going to be like guilty. Cops, he said cops can go do anything the fuck they want, right? And so he's not bringing her in to be fair. This whole thing isn't fair.
And because of that and her reputation, she went into showbiz. So a lot of people don't, they think of Janine as showbiz. Actually, showbiz was not her thing. And she did great. She was on, along with a couple of other of my friends, on the #1 show.
Your friends. All my friends I'm bringing in to put in positions of fucking authority that they don't deserve. They're my friends.
And she did great, but this is what she loves doing. This is really her baby. What she's going to do is going to be incredible. And I'd like to speak for just a few seconds on what she has in mind, what she wants to do. We're going to be appointing some judges. We have some open spots, and we're going to take people, because the judges are letting killers out. They just say, go, that's okay, don't
they're
worry
letting like people who engaged in pedophilia out with Jeffrey Epstein. They're not even like, those people aren't even prosecuted.
about it. So we're putting some, Pam recommended, Todd recommended, some judges that are great. Janine recommended. Janine's given me 3 great candidates already. We have about 10 open spots, so we could probably create some more. We need them.
We can create some more, pressure some of these motherfuckers out. Put in these fucking, Judge Dredd and shit like that.
Janine, would you say a few words, please?
Come on, Janine, get up there.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, and to all my partners here. We all want the same thing.
You want your penis back? That's a dude right there.
We all want a safe city. We want a safe capital. We want to be able to bring our families here. We want to.
You can't do that now. No one can bring their families there. No family is going to D.C. I mean, we're hearing about every day how D.C. is, there's no one going to these tourist attractions. The families aren't going because, it's so bad. It's like fucking, it's like apocalyptic out there.
Be able to come and enjoy the history that makes this place great. And unfortunately, we are not in that position right now. And Mr.
Boom. Well, what are we going to do about it, Janine Pereiro?
President, I want to thank you for taking the step that we need right now to make criminals understand that they are not going to get away with it anymore. And I'm not going to stand here and go over and over the cases. But what I can tell you is this. I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks.
Young punks are out there. A lot of young punks. She was never a young punk, right? She was always a good Christian girl. She didn't have a mouth on her. She was mouthy.
Think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old.
He can, and he did. He can touch 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, especially at his beauty pageant and with Jeffrey Epstein.
And you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest, intent to kill. I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college.
Well, you would be the judge in that sense.
We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens, and it starts today. But it's not going to end today, because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals
these punks
understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And
then it's not gonna affect the rest of you at all when we do martial law and these things. And he's an elitist. This is the elitist grabbing money and power, and then when everyone fucking flips the fuck out, they have these fucking militarized cities. That's what this is about. The big flip out that's coming as the economy folds for poor people is going to be the haves and the have-nots. You're going to see it. And Trump's not going to give a shit because he doesn't care about you. And he's not running for re-election. And then the Democrats are going to get a hold of this stuff, and they're just going to continue it in their fucking bullshit way, pushing their agenda now with a militarized system. This is why this is a truther's worst nightmare. They're doing it right in your fucking faces here. And many of the truthers voted for this motherfucker.
Final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the state attorney general, Brian Schwab.
Schwab.
I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them, I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Boom.
Great job.
Boom. She's fired up. She's bringing it.
Thank
You're
you.
a fucking skin walking, motherfucker.
If I could,
Oh, she's like fucking. She's like the Crypt Keeper, fucking 2.0. What is it? Fire Marshal Shill 2.0.
I just signed some executive orders. I'd like to have Will please come up and
Okay, we're gonna go past that stuff here. This guy reads his executive orders, and Trump comes back in.
Intended to combat the out-of-control crime conditions we've seen on D.C.'s streets for far too long, and I, for one, am deeply proud to be part of an administration that's finally coming to terms with these issues, sir.
thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you. So, just to conclude, Washington, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest, most beautiful places anywhere in the world.
In the whole world.
Was years ago. We had one problem that was a pretty big problem. The radical left got out of control and they started trying to rip down statues. And I said, let's go pass a law real fast. We're going to do it real fast, but we were blocked by the Democrats who do not want safety. Nobody gets it.
Nobody gets it. They don't get it. I don't get it. Nobody. You guys don't get it.
Get it. They don't get it.
They
Because
don't
they
even
can't
get
get votes. I don't know how they can win an election with this, but
I
they
don't
don't want
know.
safety. And I found an old statute, very old, early 1900s, that said if you so much as touch or even think about destroying a statue or
A statue.
a monument in Washington, D.C., you go to jail for 10 years with no probation, no anything. In other words, slightly different than we have today. Today we have cashless bail. There you get jailed 10 years. No curtailed sentence, 10 years. And we took it out. Nobody used it. It was never used because, you know, it's harsh. And you remember they started to rip down the statue of Abraham Lincoln. I said, that's a tough one to rip down. He was pretty good, Pam. I think he was pretty good. When
He's pretty good, Pam. What do you think, Pam? Just nod your head like a fucking bimbo, Pam. Yeah, do great. That's good.
When the
Yeah.
ropes started going around Abraham Lincoln to pull him down, Andrew Jackson, others, and they were heading to the Jefferson Memorial, Thomas Jefferson. They're going to do a big number there.
Shake your
I
head,
said,
Pam.
it's time. And I signed that statute immediately. We had it updated. We made it use the same language, all passed by Congress. And I announced it's 10 years in jail, no probation, no anything, 10 years, no curtail sentence if you touch, so much as touch a statue.
Wait, if you touch it, what, like some little kid runs up and touches it, he's in jail for 10 years?
In Washington, D.C. And it was an amazing sight, beautiful sight.
Beautiful sight. It was so beautiful.
Everybody just left. The ropes were hanging around Andrew Jackson.
It was so beautiful. The ropes around Jackson's neck.
There were two ropes around Abraham Lincoln. They
Lincoln,
left
ropes around his neck. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Hangman's noose around his neck. It was a beautiful sight.
the rope. But everybody just left. I know.
Wait, they left the ropes? They didn't take the ropes home with them? That's wasteful.
Last problem we ever had. You know, that was the last problem.
Yep, so you nod
that
your
we
hand,
ever had
Bill, like
with the
a bimbo.
statues. They were going wild, and we. Somebody came to me and said, "Sir, in 1910, I don't want to give you an exact because you'll say Donald Trump gave us wrong dates around like early on."
Yeah, you know, because numbers aren't my thing, and I just make shit up. So, but yeah, whatever. Maybe there wasn't even a statue. I don't know.
If I'm slightly off, they make you sound a little bad, so I won't be. I
Yeah,
won't
maybe
put
a little bad.
myself in that position. I won't put you in that position because I think everybody agrees with what we're doing today. But when I signed that,
Yeah, everyone does. Everyone fucking does. I mean, it's amazing. Everyone wants fucking military on the streets. Everyone wants you to kick the homeless out of D.C. Everyone wants that, right?
thing, it was like a miracle. Everybody left. They were
It's a
gone.
fucking miracle. Like, I don't know why they haven't made me into a fucking saint yet. I mean, I made the fucking guys who were trying to take Lincoln Memorial down with a bunch of ropes disappear. I mean, at least I should be considered a magician.
They were starting to march down. They started the march toward Thomas Jefferson, and I figured he was always going to be safe. But they found something with him, and they found something with Abraham Lincoln.
Was it the fact that he banged his slave girl, Sally Jennings, and when she was 15 years old, you know, kind of like you and Jeffrey Epstein, impregnated her, had 3 kids who were then his slaves. He fathered his own slave force. Well, maybe that was something to do with it.
And even in the name George Washington in California, numerous
Hemmings, I think it is. Sally Hemmings, I'm not sure.
places changed the name of George Washington High School and various other places. They took George Washington's name. This was a sick, woke culture that I think we've largely ended. And a lot of those people
It's
that were
coming back as soon as you leave office, dumb fuck. Like, it's just going to cycle back around when everyone's so pissed off at you. And there's this anti-Trump rage, and you'll have that stuff back in. All the shit that they did before is coming back around. It always does, right?
woke are now turning out to be the opposite. I won't go so far as to say MAGA. It's a very special category.
Yeah, it is for
But,
very special people. You know, special in a bad way.
They've gotten out of that. But we have people that love this country, and they love this really beautiful capital. It is. I flew over it the other day, and I said, what a beautiful place. But if there's crime all over the streets, when you get there, it doesn't look so beautiful. But we're going to make it beautiful.
Just crime everywhere. Like, I just, from my helicopter, my private jet, you know, my fucking $1 billion private jet, looks pretty nice. But get down there, you see there's like homeless motherfuckers out there sleeping on benches and shit, snorting fentanyl. I mean, like, Jesus Christ.
Again, we're going to fix it with crime, and we're going to also, as we're doing that, we're going to start doing things that we know how to do, that I know how to do better than anybody, I guess, because of my experience from previous life. But not only are we stopping the crime, we're going to clean up the trash and the graffiti and the grime and the dirt and the broken marble panels
All that shit.
and all of the things they've done to hurt this city. And we're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital that everybody wants it to be. It's going to be something very special. All of these people are really tough. Could I shake your hand, Gaddy, please? You're going to be so important here. You're going to be that guy. I hope I don't have to fire him in 2 weeks because he's too soft.
Don't be too soft. Don't be fucking soft on people. You gotta go crack some fucking heads. You gotta go out there and start cracking some heads. This guy's gonna bring in some military. This motherfucker, this dumb motherfucker here. This degenerate motherfucker, right? This drunk fucking piece of shit. He's gonna bring in a bunch of fucking National Guard troops. When you crack some fucking heads, don't be a pussy. You know, because I'll grab you and I'll fire you.
I think he's too soft. If I do, I will, though. Is it okay if you're soft, weak, and pathetic, like so many people? I will fire you so fast. You're not going to have to
I'm just a kidder.
worry about that. No, I think you're going to do a fantastic job. And everybody in this room, they may not express it, but they all want that to happen. You know, they want to be safe.
They
and
do.
their
I know. I'm clairvoyant.
families too. So it's an honor to have such a large group. I've done this for years now, hard to believe. I've never seen this room so packed. In fact, I'm sure it's a violation of every fire code.
Oh my God.
But we'll let you stay anyway. You're taking a chance. And with that, we'll say, maybe if you could, oh, wow. We could be here all day long. If we could keep the first questions perhaps to this subject, and then we'll go on to a few others.
There's just one thing I want to listen to the first guy.
Please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Can you talk about how personal of an issue this is? You talked about flying over the Washington Monument and seeing the pride of what D.C. is. And do you believe that the status of the city, the cleanliness, the way that crime is low, is a direct reflection on how the country is run?
Yeah, I do. I think the Capitol, look, everyone comes here. They're all.
So I just want to show you that one question. There's one at the end I want to show you too. But he's he gets into, I forget what he gets into here. He just goes rambling about shit. But this guy they have so many shills now that are so Trump oriented, and they just ask these glowing questions of him. They've got all these plants now, and they're alternative media people, but they're Trump plants. Like, they're not even Fox News. They're like fucking podcasters that are just bought and sold Trumpers. There's one more, maybe two more things I want to get to here. So somehow I missed this, and this is a big piece to it.
It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live.
Well, who lives? Poor people? Like, you think all people in the slums are criminals? Fucking, and he was a slumlord. I mean, he's a piece of shit criminal. He's always pushing against the law. What can I get away with, right? But in his narcissism, when other people do that, he thinks they're criminals, but when he does it, he thinks it's justified. But he was a slumlord. But this is what he's trying to say and do in Gaza. This is what happened when I was there for the Chennai flood, and they got rid of all the people that lived these poor slums. I talked about this yesterday about the bus trip I took. But there was all these people living in huts in Chennai, poor people that lived right by the river. And they got rid of them all. The water washed them away, and a lot of them died, and they were just, and then they were building these big tech centers, right? These call centers and things, like outsourced things that you see when somebody from India answers your, for your tech thing or whatever, call centers, and so in other things they were corporatizing the riverfront property, like he was saying. I showed you in my last video where he said there's all these things there that are, are good property in Russia, like waterfront property. And so Trump realizes that this is, think about the massive amounts of kickbacks he can get from developers. They're getting rid of slums, and they're getting rid of tenement housing where poor people live. They're getting rid of poor people because he fucking hates poor people. He likes to exploit them, but he hates them. Like they're beneath him. They're like fucking, slaves and animals to him. He doesn't care. Like they're goy, right? And so we're getting rid of the slums. What the fuck are you talking about getting rid of the slums? You can't get rid of the fucking slums, right? Just because you say criminals live there, you mean poor people, right? There's a criminal to be fucking poor, and there's slums all over the fucking place. Yeah, there's a lot of crime in those areas, because you cops don't go in there because people don't give a shit about the fucking people that live there. They're marginalized people. I know it's not politically correct to say get rid of the slums. Of course it's not fucking politically correct. You can't get rid of the slums. Jesus fucking Christ, bro. And he's just saying it. Like he's just saying it right there. We're going to get rid of the homeless. We're going to get rid of the poor people. And we're going to turn this into the best capital in the world. And this is going to be all federal taxpayer money going to these projects. Not projects, but, rebuilding, turning the slums into, high-end real estate. And him and his family are going to make fucking billions on it. And, the rest of it. And then there's going to be martial law, like this stuff that's going to happen, right? Where it's going to be the rich against the poor. There's going to be just two classifications of people. And there'll be no middle class, and there'll be none of this stuff. Okay, so there's one kind of humorous part here at the end.
That they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. It takes two to tango, right? So ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him, considering the fact that, I was not nice to him because of the pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin?
Yeah, what's this thing that you see in the Olympics?
Javelin is called a tank buster.
It's a tank buster? Okay.
They say that Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the first days of the war, because the tanks got stuck in the mud, some commander made a better. They would have been in Kiev in 4 hours.
Just whatever. I just 4 hours. I was going to throw that out. Just made that up.
Down the highway. But a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer, because all those tanks were stuck in the mud, and they went along with the javelins. I gave him the javelins. You know that, right?
I gave him the javelins. I'm a javelin giver.
Javelins. They gave him sheets. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first.
Out of respect, I'm leaving him out of the meeting with Putin. But I'll call him first to say, hey, I got to deal with Putin. You're going to fucking knuckle under, motherfucker.
And then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting. Or I may say, we can make a deal. I will tell you this. I've seen a poll coming out of Ukraine. 88% of the people would like to see a deal made. And if you go back 3 years, everybody was gung-ho for war. You know, everybody's gung-ho for war until you have it.
Yeah, it's just like you, Trump. All right, so that's his fucking press conference. This guy's a fucking disaster, right? He gave him the javelins. I gave him the fucking javelins. I'm a javelin giver. Let me just... I don't think I saw the end of this. I'm going to watch the end if there's anything more to add here. But, like, holy fuck, bro. There's nothing more in the press conference. There's other things I could add to this video, but I'm kind of tired. It's already lunchtime, and I got more shit to do today. Got a bunch of stuff to do at the farm stuff. And then, you know, maybe start the next video later on. You know, the thing about it is we're in a very unique time. Like, people have been apocalyptic now since, I don't know, the beginning of the 2015-16. Was that when it started, you think? You know, people started to be more apocalyptic. A lot of apocalyptic movies in the 2000s. You know, the 2000 probably 10. And then, you know, just the level of the candidates and the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric between Hillary Clinton and Trump, the division in the country, shit falling apart, Joe Biden campaigning on saving the soul of America, and language being used, apocalyptic language being used by the politicians. You know, politicians generally, there's lines that they don't cross and they don't want to create panic. You know, all the things that politicians are supposed to do. And they didn't do any of those things. Like, they just did the opposite. And so it became like, well, I think they're really fucking, I mean, maybe it's leaking out, right? And then just the breakdown of society, you know, the big event 2001, 9/11 stuff, and then some of these other big events, economic collapse 2008, the Pizzagate stuff, those kind of things that were happening. Trump being a candidate for president, like some kind of, you know, person that's never been like a politician before, or something new, extraordinarily new. And then COVID and the, you know, January 6th election stuff. And then the 4 years of Biden being senile and clearly not being able to be president. And Trump being persecuted in a fake way. And then Kamala Harris, all that stuff. And then, you know, just one big event after the other. Big newsworthy events, you know, things not lasting. I mean, the Watergate story was for like 2-year story. Like, I knew about it as a little kid, and I'd never watched the news. And then the O.J. Simpson, how long did that thing go on? Like the O.J. thing, right? And, you know, big story for a very long period of time. Now, like, fucking stories don't last more than a week or two. Big fucking things. Openly talking about World War III, Israel going after, you know, land grab, just thumbing their nose at everybody, all that shit, right? So you can clearly see that the apocalypse is a possibility. And more than that, you can see that the system is a shitty system that affects everybody negatively. And that the people at the top of the system have different rules, but everybody is involved in this degradation. Because you see the kids today and you're like, oh, these kids are so fucked up, and they're all on medication, they're all depressed, they don't even have much of what we call in the real world life anymore. They're incapable of so many things. We become soft and weak, soft in a bad way, not a, you know, soft of heart with compassion, with strength, but soft and you can't do anything. You're just like, you know, these farm raised pussies, right? Like, you're just, you know, these not a wild animal, zooed animals that have all kinds of psychological issues and things. And just the way that our whole society's gone, of course, the gender things and these movements that have happened that are just, you know, unnatural and, you know, just inorganic. And at some point you realize it's probably just going to collapse. There's no solution here. I mean, everyone has to come to that on their own terms. But if you don't realize that, at least you start saying there's probably not a solution, that the odds are against it. And that's the weird thing, that I think the majority of people start saying probably nothing you can do, and they're helpless to prepare for that, right? That's what a pocket of the future is. I mean, if this channel has any value, it's that people start thinking about what they need to do personally, because it's going to be different in different places. Everyone's going to have their own situation depending on the country they live in, the state they live in, whether they're in the rural area or cities and what's around them. Like everyone, and if you really want to survive, and I think most people don't. I think most people are just, they're like, well, if the system goes down, I'm just going to fucking die. Like, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to hope I'm one of the people that gets called, right? I think that's the majority of the people are like that. So, like Trump clearly isn't a savior. I don't know. There's still Trumpers out there. I don't know how many are disinformation agents or paid shills or whatever, but you still see these comments. And if you look at the comments under some of his bullshit, like it's just, they're still there. And, and I don't know when they'll realize, or if they ever will, but I think most people are all in. And if they don't, if it doesn't work out, they'll just give up. Like if America isn't saved, they're just they're not up for any kind of big scale changes, which of course, as you get older, looks more and more inviting, more and more, way to go about it, party until it's 1999 kind of situation. But, like on a soul level, at least if you're doing the right thing now, if you're heading in the right direction, then you have a shot at coming back. And, when there's, again, I've said this before, there's not that many spaces left. I mean, there's not as many available spaces. When you have a higher birth rate than death rate, which has gone down by about 10 million on either side. So I think it's a net 20 million. Like it's gone down from 144 million to, well, let me just check here. Okay, so we have this. It's approximately 140 million births in 2024 and 57 million deaths. So it actually has gone back up. It went down to something, I don't know, it had been 142, so it's only a couple million. But eventually you're going to have a situation where there's way more deaths than births, and there isn't. When the birth rate goes down, it doesn't even matter about the death rate. It matters about the birth rate. Because when the birth rate goes down significantly, and a lot of people are dying, well, I guess it matters too, the death part matters too. Where's your soul going to go when there's not as many available bodies, there's not available opportunities for human life? Where does your soul go? It doesn't go up. People have these faulty ideas about heaven and things, and these one-offs, but that's not the way it works. If you don't solve the problem of human life, you don't get liberation, you don't get free from your earthly bondage. You have to come back here. But if there's not enough available spots, and if they're only looking for people, like this can be done on a spiritual level, where the powers that be can determine the worthiness of a soul's ability to incarnate. That, there's going to be a movement towards redemption, so they're not going to let all the piece of shit loser, low-level souls in. Because, criminals and sociopaths, souls with bad tendencies, souls going in the wrong direction, or souls that just don't have that don't have enough experience, first-timers, first-time humans, because there are a lot of first-time humans out there. Like, there's more people now alive than dead total. And so there wasn't 8 billion dead, at least in recent American history, the past 5,000 years or whatever. And so, there's a lot of first-timers, souls that used to be animals or something else, that don't have the maturity, don't have the experience. And so they're not going to be any help in reversing the course of human, whatever we got going on here. So in all that, there's not going to be as many spots. I've talked about this. If there's, 80% of the population is reduced, 8 people dying out of 10 or whatever it is, right? And we have massive population reduction, whatever the thing is, right? So 7 out of 10, like there's, now instead of only one of those people, one of those souls gets to reincarnate, right? Out of every 7 to 10 people, only one soul out of that group of people can have a place here on Earth. So as long as you're going in the right direction, you have a better chance of coming back, as long as you're part of the solution. But almost no one wants to be that, right? So, we might see there's just nothing here, but who knows? If it's already happened on a secular time model, time that we have is linear, but it goes from, we're going in chronological order, moving forward in time. But on a spiritual level, there's shit that's already happened because it's already, time is not, it's not a straight line, it's cyclical. So anyways, also, that's just one way to think about it. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.